There is a rising conservative movement around the world, and Hungary was one of the first countries to advocate for these ideas. Today, we have a very special interview with the foreign Hungarian minister, Péter Szijjártó. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation.
Viktor Orban is serving his fourth consecutive term, and this year in the both European and local elections, Fidesz won with a comfortable majority. How can this constant support be explained?
Well, definitely not the way that is being translated by the European Parliament, because there usually we are called as a dictatorship because of winning elections, and it is not the left to win the elections in Hungary, you know. So I think the recipe is very simple. You have to listen to the people, and you have to fulfill the expectations of theirs. You know, nowadays we are living in the age of dangers. There's a war in our neighborhood for almost 1,000 days now. We have been living under a constant pressure of migration. We have been living in an environment where irrational decisions are being made in Brussels, thus decreasing and worsening our competitiveness. And there's a constant ideological pressure, you know, very aggressive LGBT propaganda, leftist mainstream pressure in media, in politics, and people are a bit fed up with that. People want to live in a safe and secure environment. They want to be proud of their nationality, they want to be proud of their history, their heritage, they want to exercise their religion, and they don't want to be always faced by politically correct environment. And in Hungary, we can ensure that. We have ensured that the country has stayed out of the war for the last 3 years. We have stopped illegal migration. We are protecting our children from LGBT propaganda in schools and kindergartens, and we protect our sovereignty in Brussels. And people like that.
As you mentioned, we are approaching 3 years of war between Russia and Ukraine. What is the situation from the Hungarian perspective?
Look, as we are living in the neighborhood, we have been paying the price of this war for 3 years now. We have been paying a huge price for a war which is not our war, and for which we definitely do not bear any kind of responsibility. So the situation is really bad. And bad especially from the perspective of casualties. You know, there have been hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions who have died because of this war. There are more millions who have had to escape from their homes. Families have been torn apart. Destruction is taking place very badly. So I think we have the most important duty, which is to save lives of the people. And in order to save lives of the people, everybody has to understand that there is no solution on the battlefield. Where you have the solution is around the negotiating table. So as soon as it is just possible, ceasefire must be made and peace talks must be started. As long as there is no ceasefire, people will die on a daily basis. And this should be avoided.
Hungary holds the presidency of the European Union. What are the challenges associated with that?
Look, our presidency has been pretty spectacular because we have been under constant attack by the liberal mainstream. You know, we do believe that the most important thing for the European people now is peace and competitiveness. And we try to act in favor of these two. Therefore, we have negotiated with the Russians, with the Ukrainians, we have negotiated with the Chinese, we have negotiated with President Trump, trying to ensure that that safety and security can return to Europe, especially to its central part. This was not this was not supported and definitely not liked by our European counterparts. Unfortunately, nowadays in Europe, the majority of the political leaders are still representing a pro-war position. And now they are pretty much concerned about the decision of the American citizens, because we all know that President Trump has a different approach. But still, most of the European leaders are living in the old world. They are just using the cliches. They are reading out statements which have been prepared a long time ago, and they just say that Russia must lose, Ukraine must win. But when you raise the question, so what that does mean, no one knows the answer. So therefore, we as a presidency, tried to bring politics to the reality, and not to ideology and not to political approach in this regard. On competitiveness, most of the European political leaders want to isolate China from Europe. But we have to understand that European and Chinese companies, European and Chinese corporates work together so close that on many occasions the success of the corporate strategies of European companies are dependent on whether they can continue their cooperation with their Chinese suppliers. So killing competitiveness, over-politicizing everything, representing a pro-war position, this is now what the European mainstream makes. And once you go against that, you are immediately stigmatized, and lectured and accused. So instead of having a rational debate, instead of having a real respect-based dialogue, it's always stigmatization. So when you speak a bit out of mainstream, you are immediately stigmatized as a puppet of Putin, friend of the Russians, propagandist of Kremlin, which shows that the level of standards of political discussion nowadays in Europe is really low and very poor.
What about the recent meeting international in Budapest?
Well, we have hosted the European Political Community Summit, which is a very, very useful platform, since there you can hear a wide variety of opinions. Because there it is not only the EU member states who are there, but you have Turkey, you have Turkey, you have the Western Balkan countries, and their approach, their opinion is pretty colorful compared to what you hear from the EU,
West.
From the EU politicians. So the big problem of Europe now is that European Union is that EU is getting very introverted. So EU is not brave enough to expand. EU is not brave enough to be enlarged. Although European Union is losing now a lot of competitiveness and needs some fresh air, needs some new impetus, needs some new dynamism, new energy. And this can only come from outside, from countries which would like to join the European Union and bring this impetus to us. But unfortunately, the Western Europeans don't want that for some reason. They are not brave enough to let these countries in. Maybe because then a wind of change could come as well,
Donald Trump is back in office, and Hungary was really expecting this. Why?
Because we do consider politics as a job based on experience. And we have a very clear experience from that four-year-long time when President Trump was in office. At that time, the US-Hungary relations were on their peaks, in the top form, top shape. During that period of time, we had a great relationship. During that period of time, no wars were started in the world. During that period of time, President Trump tried to resolve very complicated issues based on dialogue and discussion. Contrary to that, during the Democrat administration, the Hungary-US relations, basically collapsed from the political perspective. The Democrat administration has been considering us in a very hostile way. They have implemented decisions which were very harmful to us, like terminating the bilateral tax treaty between the two countries, like eliminating the visa-free regime between the two countries, and financing our opposition. Financing opposition movements, financing opposition activities, financing opposition medias. So we have a very clear feeling about the difference between President Trump in office and the Democrats in office. And you know, this Democrat administration has been fueling the war in Ukraine as well, and put an influence on the Europeans to do so. So with the change in administration in Washington, we have the hope that President Trump makes change in this regard as well and brings back peace, safety and security to our region. This is very, very crucial to us. You can imagine that.
I have been an international observer in the Georgian elections, and I was shocked about the media pressure before and after the elections. Why Viktor Orban was the first one supporting the Georgian Dream Party?
Well, first of all, because we are friends. The Georgian government and the Hungarian government are representing very, very similar positions in many issues. We are both right-wing, we are both conservative, we are both patriot, we are both sovereignist, we both protect the families. And this brought us very close. On the other hand, we understand what they feel now, because this is what we feel after all elections. And this is exactly what must be felt by all conservative leaders or parties who win elections. Because what happens? If a conservative, right-wing party or leader wins elections, what is the international reaction? This is not a democracy, there was election fraud, democracy is in danger, there was foreign interference, and so on and so forth, right? When a leftist or a liberal party or leader wins elections, everything is fine, democracy is flourishing, celebration of democracy. So these are so obvious double standards and so obvious lies. If the opposition had won the election in Georgia, the liberal mainstream would not have said any bad word about elections, about election system, about regulations, nothing. Now, as a conservative party won, they consider the democracy being a danger. So this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So therefore, we wanted to show our support. As the presidency of the EU, we help their path towards European integration. And I think it's scandalous. It's really scandalous what the international liberal mainstream makes to the Georgian Dream Party. So we have to support them.
We can see a growing conservative wave around the world. What do you think is driving this?
The people are fed up with political correctness, I think. The people are fed up that politicians are not honest with them. People are fed up with this very aggressive LGBT propaganda. People are fed up with this international approach that it doesn't make any difference where you are coming from, what is your nationality. They are fed up with the pressure that you should not take care of your religion, your history, your heritage, So, and people like being proud of where they come from, proud of their nation, proud of their religion, proud of their culture, proud of their traditional way of living. And I think that this approach now is becoming stronger and stronger. And this is being reflected in this conservative wave, which is being represented by President Trump, President Milei, my Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, the leader of the winning party of the Austrian elections, or Madame Le Pen, and others. It's in the European Parliament, the third largest group now is the group called Patriots for Europe, a very truly sovereignist conservative group. And that has been isolated by the mainstream, be it center-right, center-left, whatever, being isolated by the mainstream, no positions in the European Parliament, no cooperation, which is again insane because they represent a big bunch of the European voters. And these European voters are now being humiliated by the mainstream politicians in the European Parliament, who I think are personally frustrated of the fact that this conservative wave is on the rise.
As we are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, it seems to be a good rapport between Javier Milei and Viktor Orban. Can bilateral relations grow?
Oh, absolutely. Here during my visit, as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the diplomatic ties, we have signed 5 very important agreements. agreement on the cooperation on space industry, since the Hungarian astronaut, the training of the Hungarian astronaut is in its final stage, so he will fly to the International Space Station soon, giving a new impetus to our space industry. We signed agreement on to cooperate on the field of nuclear energy, because we both use nuclear energy, we both invest into nuclear energy, and the future is for the nuclear energy, obviously, because if you raise the question how you can supply the exponentially growing demand of electricity of the world in a safe, reliable, affordable, and environmentally protective way, this is only nuclear. Then we signed the agreement on education. So there are 25 scholarships which we award to Argentinian students every year on Hungarian universities. We start joint training programs for our young diplomats between our diplomatic academies, and we agreed on launching the education of Hungarian language, one of the biggest universities here in Buenos Aires, and the Hungarian lecturer will arrive soon. We are negotiating about using Hungarian technology when it comes to upgrading the efficiency of the gas and oil exploitation in Argentina, which is a strategic branch. We do understand we have broken the record of trade last year between the two countries, approaching $250 million. New Hungarian companies are showing interest to enter the market here in Argentina. We understand that there's going to be a big privatization wave taking place here, so we present this opportunity to the Hungarian companies. So now I feel that based on this political commonality, the bilateral relations are on the rise.
Mr. Szijjártó, we thank you very much because of this opportunity, and we invite you to close this interview.
Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. You know, you Argentinians enjoy a great popularity in Hungary, mostly because of football, obviously, but now, given the fact that our leaderships are representing a very similar way of thinking, and since those who are thinking in a conservative, traditional manner are usually under very heavy accusation and attack, we feel a growing solidarity between the two countries and the two nations. And I hope that building on that, we will enter into a new golden era of our bilateral relations. We wish all the best to the president and his administration to be successful in his plans regarding repairing the Argentinian economy.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you very much.